Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast, where we discuss everything fantasy. I'm your host, Stevie Collier, and I'm here with my co-host, Andy Peliquin. And today we are honored to have the guest, Jeffrey Bardwell, and he is the author of the Artifice Mage Saga. Did I say that right? Artifice?
Yes, you did.
Yes. Okay.
I couldn't say that one. Yeah, guys, just a little heads up. Jeff's internet connection
You did.
is a little bit wonky.
Hello, everyone.
So if things sound weird, we apologize in advance.
Yeah, that just means you'll get to hear more of my beautiful voice. Yeah, I know. So Jeff, let's try this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your series? Give him a second to.
As we said, this is
Sure.
a perfect example.
Like you said, it's called the Artifice Mage Saga of dark epic fantasy and steampunk. So,
well, that's a pretty solid intro.
It's so bad, the lag. I feel so bad, but
dark epic fantasy and steampunk, and so there are dragons and there are chainsaws and there are dragons getting butchered by chainsaws.
That's exactly my kind of book.
I can just picture how gory that would be. Just like see a dragon screaming while it's getting its head buzzed off. I'm also gonna go ahead and read the blurb first two for Rotten Magic, which is his book one. Would you sacrifice your future to practice magic? Artificers, is that right? Artificers are the gilded princes of the Iron Empire. Mages are violent criminal outcasts. Devon competes.
Oh, no. I mean, classy.
What was that?
I missed it.
Yeah, I missed it too. And hey, Jeff, you can type in the box too, and if we miss anything, you can let us know. But Devon competes.
That is correct.
Okay. So Devon competes to become the best artificer in the Empire, but he's secretly a mage. All the apprentices in the Artificers Guild compete by building crude prototypes of powered armor for mock battles. When Devon transforms himself into a mechanical dragon to slaughter the competition, his rival Benson steps into the role of Dragon Slayer. But Devon's secret grows heavier as he claws his way to the top. He started hearing eerie voices in his head, the stout words of being he calls the artificer, and the oily voice of the mage. How long can Devon be satisfied with the fake dragon armor when the promise of true arcane power whispers in his ear? Embark on Devon's dark, epic journey in book one of the Artifice Mage series. Join the fantasy steampunk brawl of metal versus magic, when sorcery is bloody, science is greasy, and nobody's hands are clean. I love that last part. I really do. Very
a pretty awesome hook there. Great job.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so weird too. Like it's just a weird premise for a book, and I love it. I get that all the time. Like my books are weird, but this seems like my cup of tea, Jeff. So great idea. I think you and I would get along in person. I'm reading his lips. I think he says thank you.
He says, Stevie, you're the greatest ever.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. And Jeff, if there's something really important you want to say, just remember. Oh, yeah, there you go. Thank you. You're more than welcome to write it in the comment box, because for some reason it's just not coming through today, guys. But Jeff, you're out in the boonies, is that correct?
Awesome. Yeah, at the fundamental, it's about a kid that's shooting for the stars, and then his life kind of goes to hell.
Yes, definitely. So Devin is younger than I was imagining him then. Okay, he's talking.
I am out in the boonies.
Okay. Wow.
Central Virginia.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, man. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with something cool that happened to us this week. Andy, do you want to go first or should I go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Because I want to keep it sort of on theme instead of talking about, it's not the Fantasy Fiends and Stevie's Dating Life podcast.
16-ish.
For the last few weeks. So.
Wow, Andy. Wow.
I know. So this week.
Devin is about 16. He's right on the verge of becoming a journeyman.
All right.
Why is it
going to be an interesting one, guys?
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's an internet connection problem.
Yes.
We'll just blame Obama.
Yeah, it's all Obama.
Okay, so this week I officially started work on the final book in my Hero of Darkness series. Which I haven't even launched the first one. So my goal is to have all 6 books done before I launch the first one, so they can just come out nice and quick. But it's amazing how complicated everything is. Like before, all the books, you sort of bring elements from the previous one to drive the story forward. But now I have to tie up every question, every mystery, everything that wasn't answered in all 5 books beforehand. And like it's so much work. And so up until about this morning, it was like trying to pull teeth from an angry bull that's charging at you 100 miles an hour with spikes in its head. And it was not flowing so well. And then I got some amazing stuff done. So I'm actually about 20,000 words in after starting on Monday. So I'm excited to finish the series because it's been, I've been dedicating about 3 years of my life to writing it. So I'm happy to finish it so I can move on. But it's going to be a long one and it's a complicated one for sure.
I saw the Facebook post and I was excited for you. So, what is the word length on this one? The word amount?
I'm guessing it's probably going to be upward of 100,000. I mean, I haven't written a book shorter than 100,000 words on purpose for a while, but
yeah,
I think it'll probably be between 100 and 110. Although depending on how complicated everything gets. I mean, I'm only at like the 3rd story beat and it's 20,000 words in. These are important story beats that had to be, you had to take my time on them. But this could be the longest book yet because it's tying everything together, all of the lore of the world, all of the character elements, everything that's happened with the antagonist, the supporting characters, all of it, just everything has to come to a head in the book. So it's going to be, I'm hoping it's going to work out. Yeah. My goal is to finish it by the middle of April. So we'll see if I can make it.
So what's your word count that you're writing each day?
I can't really say a daily thing because some days I get 4,000 words and other days I get 12,000 words, but I'm shooting for about 30,000 words a week.
30,000. That's pretty good. Yeah. Geez, 12,000 words a day. Holy crap, dude.
Well, today I only got 11,000 in, and that was sort of a slower day because
I had business and stuff. Was it ghostwriting stuff?
No, this is mine.
Oh, dang, man. 11,000. You make me feel like so inferior with my, I think, 1,700 words today.
Well, as you're about to tell us, you had an interesting night last night, which could give you some sort of excuse.
Yeah. So, and Jeff, I'll get to you right after this. So, dating, yeah, I had a date last Friday, and that was just the worst train wreck ever. Just terrible, just horrible experience. Like when we departed from each other, it was basically, it was just like we're never gonna see each other again. I don't think she'd ever read a book in her life, stuff like that. Hated Star Wars, thought it was Star Trek. It ain't gonna work,
Yeah.
Last night's was pretty cool. Yeah, it was. God, I don't want to go into detail. It was a good one. It was a good night. Really good night. I was up way too late. I'm exhausted, but still got some writing done. Cool thing that happened to me, though, is I finally saw the Black Panther. That movie blew my mind.
Wasn't that just awesome?
It's my favorite Marvel movie, even over Iron Man. So I enjoyed it that much. It had me biting my fingernails.
And did you get what I said about how the characters were the story was almost more interesting than the action? Did you
It
feel
was,
well?
yeah. I was hoping, when the action went in, I was like, man, we're gonna get to some story, and the villain was just so, in my opinion, just heinous, and the villains, I don't want to give anything away, but it was excellent. So that's it for me. Jeff, do you want to try and tell something cool that happened to you this week? I saw you had a cat there.
And now we wait.
Mm-hmm.
That's Scraps because she eats all my rough drafts. For this today is I'm in the midst of all my novellas into novels, and it's frustrating as all get out because even when I'm fit, I'm never finished because I've already completed the project and now I'm just recompleting the project. It's kind of an empty feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I'm excited.
Is any of this coming through?
Yeah,
yes.
We got it all, surprisingly. Hooray for internet.
It just takes a while.
Yeah, I totally get that feeling. It's like I'm coming.
Closed all my windows. I hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm getting to the end of this series and I feel a little bit like, now what? Like what do I do? What do I do after this is done? I've got other plans and other projects, but I feel like finally once I finish the Hero of Darkness books, I'll be able to take a little breather and just sort of decompress, maybe even take a week or two off of writing completely just to sort of clear my head and what do they call it? It's not refocus. It's like when you have a business plan and then something changes and so you have to like shift, or I can't remember the word, but
I'm thinking in the term of weightlifting, it's called like a deload week where you just don't hit the weights, give your body a rest, which I think
that'll work.
De-stress.
Okay, so before we get to the topic today, which I'm excited for, it's one, just like the Fantasy Fiends podcast, we always talk about some interesting stuff, stuff I never would have thought about, but luckily Andy and Jeff did. We got out of the three, at least two of us are smart. Andy, you can leave. Andy, so what is the word of the day?
All right, so I had a tough choice of the word of the day. I love the word artifice. The title of the series, Jeff's book series, is The Artificers, or it's got artifice all over it. And artifice is a clever or cunning device, especially as used to trick or deceive others. So when someone is an artificer, they're usually someone like it was a sort of an early term for like they make clockwork stuff and things like early machines, like the early automatons, devices that could sort of self automate and they would continue running. And so they were artificers who did that. But it's also a great word for sort of clever and cunning things used to deceive other people. So someone who is an artificer is also someone who's deceiving.
Okay.
That's about what I was going for.
Very cool.
So that was cool of you to use our author for the week's book title for the word of the day. Basically,
I'm getting good at this word of the day thing, Stevie.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like that, I love it. You did your research for this week's podcast, and so did I.
Literally, while we were setting up the pre-show.
Yeah, like what's today's topic? And today's topic is Andy. What's today's topic?
Today's topic is the mob mentality.
Yeah, that's the name.
Jeff suggested this idea, and it's a really interesting one. He was talking about the lizard brain and how it comes in. Jeff, do you want to try to give us an explanation of the topic to start us off with?
I will give it my best shot. The mob mentality is the idea that you take a individual person who can think and reason, and you stick them in a group, and all that reason goes away, and all the frontal lobe, all the thoughts, all the thinking goes away, and we're really just tied to our emotions, to groupthink, to rawest, most simple part of ourselves. And it's also called mob rule because, well, it should be called mob. Everyone's unruly.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, another great word for it is herd mentality, where and that's a really good. I feel like that's probably the best way to encapsulate what happens when you have all these people together. It's not that you know, like in a herd of cows, for example, maybe there is a lead cow, or there is what we can call it the instigator, the person who leads, who's at the front of the pack. But everyone else is just following. All the other cows are just following because someone else is running. You know, a cow is running in one direction, so hey, let's run the other. You know, let's run the same direction. And so, you know, that's how you get the sort of stampedes, because you've got all of these cows together. They're kind of mindless, but they're just doing what everyone else is doing. And that is a perfect example of what happens in one of these mobs, which is why I use the term mindless mob for the topic. It's that, like Jeff was saying, you've got this rational person who is driven by logic, and then all of a sudden he gets in a group of other people and logic just disappears. They stop thinking clearly. They get what's called group mind, where all of these people around them are acting one way, so they feel, okay, I'm going to act this way too. It's why mosh pits exist at rock concerts. I've never been to a rock concert, so I can't speak to speak to the mentality. But really, like, if you think about it, a lot of the people who are in a mosh pit, they're probably not violent people, but because of everyone else doing it, you know, the music is whipping them into a frenzy, the people around them, the atmosphere, just everything, all of a sudden they're in this huge,
I'm picturing a Far Side cartoon with a bunch of cows in the mosh pit.
Yeah, exactly. And so probably one of the best examples, and unfortunately a very common one, is Black Friday. You will see the mildest housewife turn into a ravening monster when there's a toy their child wants, or there's something that they think their house needs, and they will, you get stampedes, you get people dying every single year. There was a joke in this show Superstore on NBC last week, and they were like, you can never avoid tramplings. All we can do is try to minimize them. Just fewer tramplings than last year. And they said it as a joke, and it was a great joke because it's so accurate. Every single Black Friday, there is just this stampede of people, and someone ends up getting hurt. And no matter what the stores do to try to prevent it, they can't, because of this mindless mob mentality where everybody just does what everybody else is doing, and they sort of lose rationale and go with that lizard brain, that instinct part of their brain that makes them do these things.
Jeff.
And later, it's the worst excuse in the world. I was doing it because everyone else was doing it. I was just going with the flow, and that makes it okay.
Do you want to hear something absolutely crazy? So I'm on the Wikipedia page of the herd mentality, yes. And there's this example. Researchers at Leeds University performed group experiments where volunteers were told to randomly walk around a large hall without talking to each other. A select few were given more detailed instruction on where to walk. The scientists discovered that people end up blindly following one or two instructed people who appear to know where they're going. It only takes 5% of confident-looking and instructed people to influence the direction of 95% of the people in the crowd. And 200 volunteers did this without realizing. That is insane.
I could see that.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Jeff, so is there a particular scene in one of your novels that spawned this, today's topic?
In the universe the novel is set in, the mages are basically a permanent hidden underclass. And so I use herd mentality as a way of examining the prejudice against that class of people. And it's not that anyone in particular knows any mages, but there's this mentality that everyone who is a mage fits this stereotype. They're evil, they're awful people. And so the main crux of the story is how my main character deals with realizing he is afflicted with this, and how his friends start treating him differently when they realize he is afflicted like this.
I mean, back to the mob mentality thing. There's this concept called de-individuation. De-individuation. It means it's a loss of self-awareness, and people in a big group, they are less likely to follow normal restraints and inhibitions, and they lose their sense of individual identity. So it's like they're more likely to engage in behavior because the people around them are, and it's not like, oh, I'm a person who will go to jail if I turn over this cop car, like you see, in the LA riots in '92, or sporting events, when their team wins or loses or whatever. You got all these people doing these things, and the people believe that they can't be held responsible for violent behavior or aggressive behavior, because the action isn't theirs, it's the group's. All of us did it, so none of us can be held individually responsible. And this is this de-individuation. And it's called a diffusion of responsibility. It's not I didn't do it, or I did it with everybody else around me. So the larger the group, the larger this the more pronounced the de-individuation and diffusion of responsibility.
I could totally see that. In fact, I can like feel it. If I was in that situation, I would feel like I'm not responsible because I was in this group of 200 people, and I started thinking that ideas like, how do you know it was me? And you can't arrest us all. I don't know. It's just
no. It's exactly what it says. It's called physical anonymity. Basically, you can pick out one person standing in front of you, but when you look at a crowd, you see a crowd. You don't really see individual people. And so it's called physical anonymity. And it leads to fewer social inhibitions. You're no longer worried about social inhibitions, the things that are sort of taboo or not right, because everyone else is doing it. Or your behavior can't be traced back specifically to you. You throw a punch, everyone else is throwing a punch. So why should I be held responsible if everyone else was doing it? So that's what this herd mentality is. It's just everybody doing what everybody else is doing because of this loss of social inhibition, but then also this emotional response to things. And I would say in many cases, it is what has led to a lot of the problems, of the modern problems with where people, blame the police for attacking the mob or getting violent with the mob, pepper spraying or water hosing or whatever they do. You've got these two groups of people who are, it's this tense, charged situation. You've got angry people on one side and then scared people on the other side. A line of 40 cops facing a mob of 600 people, that is serious physical danger. So the cops are afraid for their life. They have all this training, they have the tools. And then in a moment of panic, in a moment of, instinct, someone does something and shit happens. Shit hits the fan. Everything goes to hell because you've got both of these people, these emotion-driven groups of people, and everything just goes chaotic. And then, of course, the cops get the blame.
Yeah.
But then, what about the other people on the other side?
So what do you guys think is the difference between groupthink and mob mentality? Is it the end goal of both of them that makes them different?
Groupthink is the evil that facilitates mob mentality. It's kind of like the nuts and bolts.
A quick Google search says groupthink is a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony or conformity in the group results in irrational or dysfunctional decision making.
Okay.
So everybody wants to go home early, so they'll make shitty decisions that they all agree on just to get out. You always see it in lawyer movies where all the jury is against the last guy, and the last guy's the holdout because he doesn't think the criminal is innocent or guilty, whatever it is, and everyone's pressuring him to agree. So he has to sort of go to them one by one and convince them of the logic of his argument, either whether it's that the person is innocent or guilty, depending on the movie. And so the groupthink is the 11 people working in harmony together, even though the decision is questionable because they all want to get home to their families, or they're sick of being sequestered, or they're hungry, or whatever it is. That is an example of groupthink. Mob mentality is far less thinking, in essence. Everyone's just acting.
Okay. I have a really good example of mob mentality, and that is How to Kill a Mockingbird. When, you know, I think his name is so it's this mob that, you know, gets together and they're going to go and kill the black man. What's his name? Jim Thompson. I can't remember. You know, the black guy. He's in jail.
Are you thinking A Time to Kill?
No, How to Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have this mob, and this mob goes to the jail in which this black guy's at, and they're going to kill him. And he didn't commit the crime. They think he raped a white woman, and he didn't do it. And Atticus, who is the lawyer, is there, you know, protecting the cell. And Atticus is a white lawyer, and he's the one that is, you know, he's defending this black guy. And anyway, my favorite part of the book is when this mob shows up and they're ready to kill this black guy and maybe even Atticus. Well, Atticus's daughter, Scout, is there. She sneaks out of the house or whatever. I think that's how it goes. Well, anyway, she sees the father of one of the boys in her class and says, "Oh, Mr. Cunningham, blah, blah, blah. I know your son." And that it drains him of that mob mentality. He's like, "What am I doing? I'm a human. I'm about to go kill another human being." And it takes this innocence of this little girl to bring him back to reality. And he's the one who disbands the mob, you know?
It literally restores his sense of individuality, or sense of identity, individual identity, because he finds this connection to something that is real in his life. And so it takes him out of, I'm just one more faceless, nameless person in a crowd, to I am the father of this child this girl's know. So it establishes that connection and restores that sense of identity.
Have either of y'all read that book before? I had to read it like 3 times in school. That's why.
I have not.
No?
Not since high school. I do remember that scene.
Yes, exactly. Well, it stood out to me because I understood the concept so well, and it just stayed with me. It stuck with me. It stuck with me. So I had another example, but now I have been in a mosh pit. Funny story. I've been in 3 mosh pits because I do like rock concerts. I don't go to them anymore because I don't drink a whole lot, and it's literally a bad crowd. So the first time I went into a mosh pit, I'm not joking, I actually left with a black eye, and I got punched, or actually I got elbowed so hard in the eye it actually cracked the side of my skin. So it was like, not only was it a black eye, it was bleeding. And it's weird to see these people become like animals, you know. And when I joined, I quickly became that way. Once I started getting shoved around a little bit, I'm like, oh yeah, this is fun. Oh, I'm feeling it. And you know, so I've actually felt that intensity, and it's addictive.
Yeah.
So
and that's because humans, no matter how logical we think we are emotion-driven creatures. Pure and simple.
This is true.
Jeff, you look like you're a guy who goes to a lot of mosh pits.
The sweater?
You go in your sweater. Andy, should we go ahead and do the reading?
Yeah, let's do the reading part.
Okay. Let me pull it up here.
Jeff, unfortunately, given your internet connection, we'll do it between the 2 of us. Sorry about that.
Completely understand. I will sit back and enjoy listening to what I have wrought.
There
Yes.
you go, exactly.
Let me find it. I really need to clean out my inbox is not here. Please. No.
Do you want me to once again?
Yes. Please do it.
Let's the podcast down.
I hate when this happens. I do it all the time. I know. Oh, here it is. I found it. Well, I got confused because some author got with us really early, you know, like 2 weeks in advance with their material. So I got confused.
You know what you can do tomorrow or next week is search the author's name. Search Jeff Bardwell or Jeffrey Bardwell, and you will never, ever, ever not find.
That's what I did. I love, by the way, that Jeff's title for the reading is dramatic reading, so I'm excited already. Jeff, are there any characters? Is Devin like who's all in this reading?
Is Devin the main character who has an ego the size of a planet? There's his friend Drusilla, who's the more logical, grounded one. And there is a bully called Benson, who's actually smarter than your average tough.
Awesome.
Those are the.
Is Drusilla a girl? Yes,
she is.
Oh, okay.
How many male Drusillas do you know, Stevie?
I'd never even heard of a Drusilla, so I had to ask. It sounds like a plant.
All right, Stevie, why don't you do the narrator and I'll do the voices?
Oh yeah, let's do that, man. That sounds good. Okay. A loud harumph came from inside the classroom. All three of the apprentices turned to stare. A pair of old spectacles looked back, the eyes behind them unblinking and uncaring, as the stench of chalk dust and parchment wafted into the hallway.
Will you lot scoot through the door already? You interrupted my lecture on steel joint welding. An intricate process to be sure. Now I must begin again.
The journeyman said, projecting his voice over the groans of the class. He jutted his chin at the empty desks in front of the room, and his spectacles slid down his nose. He pushed the spectacles back with one finger, while the digits of his other hand tapped the lectern. Devin snorted as Drusilla helped him off the floor. To Journeyman Droog, classes were merely a waste of time that kept him from his proper station in life. The laboratory. He wasn't shy about telling them how lucky they were. He had sacrificed so much valuable time to further their education. After one of his dull lectures, most of his students fantasized about locking the man away in his lab and melting the key. Devin, Drusilla, and Benson took their seats. Droog resumed his lecture as the door closed, sealing the apprentices inside the classroom with him. As the journeyman droned, Devin's thoughts wandered back to the black guards. One of them follows me everywhere in the market. Nobody else, just me. And they've upgraded their suits, the better to squash poor, unsuspecting mages in their gigantic metal. A steel fist pounded on the classroom door. Devin whimpered, trying to push away from his desk and falling over. As laughter spurted from every corner of the room, Droog turned from Devin's prone figure to the door.
Oh, get up already. By the five gods, what is it now?
The journeyman sighed.
Enter, secure in the knowledge you have doomed my students to perpetual ignorance. Get in here, man.
Devin blushed. He righted his chair. The eyes of the other apprentices singed the back of his neck, but none hotter than the gleeful, twinkling malice of the brute.
What are you so afraid of?
Benson drawled as the door cracked open and a small woman with a metal prosthetic hand entered the room.
Your presence is required in the forge room, Journeyman Droog.
The woman said, not giving the class a second glance.
Yes, very well. Talk amongst yourselves.
Droog said with a dismissive wave as he followed the woman from the room. Benson's smile grew wider and wider.
A mechanical hand.
He chuckled as the door closed behind the journeyman.
Does the thought of all those little springs and gears frighten you, Apprentice Devin?
He slapped his knee.
An artificer afraid of technology. Even the gods would laugh at that one. I wasn't afraid.
Devin stammered. Everyone knew it was a lie. He could see it in their faces. Benson's eyes widened with mock surprise.
Have you been play acting this whole time? Pretending at being an honest Imperial like you pretend to be a dragon?
He pursed his lips.
You didn't grow up here. Did you come from Coral?
Devin shrunk into his desk as the room closed around him. Drusilla pushed away from her seat and went to comfort her friend.
That's enough, Benny.
She placed a hand on Devin's shoulder and squeezed gently. She turned and glared around the room as though daring anyone else to speak, to even utter a whisper of reproach. At last, she turned to Benson, and her frown deepened as she marched toward him. Benson grinned at his enemy.
You are Corellian, aren't you? A rube from the East hiding among pure civilized folks. One of those dirty little mage lovers.
Drusilla gasped and slapped the bully full across the mouth.
You will take back those words,
she hissed.
Devon has more iron in his blood than 10 of you. He has more skill in his little finger.
Devon... Oh, wait. Benson rubbed his cheek and held up his hands.
Never said he was an artificer born. Just asking where. I'm not from Corel,
Devon said.
And is it a crime to like dragons?
Drusilla smirked and placed her hands on her hips.
Have you forgotten the symbol of the Iron Empire, Benny? That strange beast on all the banners? Scaly hide, fiery breath, leathery wings? What are those creatures called again? Dragons, Benson said, crossing his arms and slouching. Drusilla smiled. So nothing says imperial pride like a dragon, yeah? Keep the mage slurs to yourself next time. You'll be splitting teeth. Benson ignored this and glared at Devon. Just wait until this afternoon, Dragon Boy. We'll skin your scales then, cut you up for dragon steaks. We'll see who cuts whom, Devon murmured as Journeyman Druge returned to class. Devon spent the morning fantasizing about the retribution he would pound into Benson's hide that afternoon. To call someone a mage or a mage lover was the nastiest insult ever. How unfortunate it happens to be true, the artificer muttered. And how convenient the mage cooed. Only fire will teach the young wretch some manners. Devon flexed his hand like a claw. My gauntlets will swipe that smile off his face. Dun, dun, dun. Great ending. Great ending. I love it. So he's definitely a little bit spiteful there, huh? We'll take that as a yes. Yeah. I think Mage Lover is like Mudblood.
Yes, he has a bone to pick with the world.
Yeah, I was gonna say this story definitely has a Harry Potter thing. That's what was screaming in my head, you know, like that was like
yes,
Juge was like a Snape to me.
Yeah, like a boring Snape that like more than Snape is like a sort of a scornful person. Druze is just sort of a self-important guy.
Yeah,
he keeps rambling on. Like you said, he talks about how lucky they were to be in his class. I think it's sort of like, what's his name? Is it Gilderoy Lockhart from the second book?
Gilderoy Lockhart. Yeah, so he's all like, yeah, he's like the one with the smile and whatnot.
I don't know if that's his name. I think that's his name.
Something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Haha, I got it right.
Woo. Is it Gilderoy or Gilderoy? Gilderoy. Something else, like Jeff, you totally nailed the personality of a university professor, especially in the science field, because they're just there and they really have like a job at like a research facility or something, and they don't even really want to be there teaching their students. I had a physics professor like that. He didn't even really want to be there. He just wanted to get funding from the school to, you know, go further with his research and whatnot. So this is terrible, boring class. You could tell he did not want to be there. So, well, is there anything you guys want to add about horde mentality?
I think we covered it. I'd be cool ending it here. Jeff, do you want to tell readers/viewers where they can find you and all of your artificer/mage goodness?
Yes, yeah. The guild.
Yeah, it's not coming through.
Yeah. Obama.
Yeah. Jeez, it was doing so well there for a minute.
Sure. Right now, all of the books in the Artifice Mage Saga are up on Amazon. Or you can go through my website, which is twigboatpress.com.
Very cool. And
all right.
Yeah, Jeff is on Facebook as Twigboat, facebook.com/Twigboat, and Twitter as well as Twigboat.
Twigboat? I love it. You can't forget Twig Boat. Okay, well, Andy, do we
They're
know
on Amazon and at twigboatpress.com, and it's the artificial planet.
Awesome. Well, if you didn't catch that, it is Jeffrey Bardwell. He is on Amazon. You can also get it on his website. The book is called Rotten Magic, The Artifice Mage Saga Book 1.
Thank you.
Yes, we really appreciate you being on the air. Sorry that, the internet was a little wonky, but we'd love to have you on the air next time, and hopefully we won't have this issue. Well, we really appreciate you being on the air. Andy, who do you know if who we'll be having next week?
Yeah, we've got Ben Hale next week. Been having a bit of trouble getting in touch with him, so we will see if we have Ben Hale next week or if we have someone else.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'll go ahead and end it here. Let me just say that all of you guys are amazing. Please like and subscribe. If you are on and his website is twigboatpress.com, so you can check him out there, or check out Jeff Bardwell there as well. All right, guys, so we will see you guys next week. Please like and subscribe. That helps us out a lot. And tune in next week for another fantastical episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. We love you all. Mwah.